How y'all doing, folks? It's your buddy Orange Hat here, bringing you another Tuesday theme stream. And we're talking, it's Jason Bourne November, so we're talking the Bourne Ultimatum. Now, before I get started, if you want to support my channel, help get my watch time up, there are several playlists in which you can watch to help get the hours up. I do appreciate any and all help that has been given and is still to be given. Thank you to all. Sunday or tonight is also, I believe, Odin going live, as well as the Barroom podcast tonight at 9 on Society Reviews channel. We're going to be talking about some juicy news and crazy news and whatnot. Tomorrow, it's just going to be whatever content I can get out for you, and then the holiday comes up where I will be taking that day completely off, also celebrating my late grandfather's birthday. So, without further ado, let's get into the Bourne Ultimatum. So this movie is also directed by Paul Greengrass. Supremacy, Ultimatum, and Jason Bourne were all directed by the same director, Greengrass. And honestly, I think he did a very good job with it. Where the other director who did The Bourne Identity, Lyman, I think that he is he does a good job at pushing a movie and telling adaptations of books to film. He does a good job at that. Greengrass also does a good job with it as well, because these movies, I do believe, are based on novels or novel characters later on as it happens. But getting into it, this movie is also stars Matt Damon, Julia Stiles, Joan Allen from the previous movies, David Strathairn, Scott Glenn, and Albert Finney joined the cast in this one. So this movie has a scene from Bourne Ultimatum or Bourne Supremacy in it, which was the ending of Bourne Supremacy, which it takes place later on in the film, or in this film. And that was just to basically give you an idea of a nice solid ending. However, I do like how they managed to make it a part of this film. And I really think that they did a great job at incorporating it in, meaning it adds further, or it's given further context, and it's made a part of this story. And hey, Geek Detective Pearson Vanya, good to see you. Yes, David Strathairn is great as Noah Vosen. I mean, he plays that role very well. And Scott Glenn, being basically very shadow director kind of role, is also very good. I heard of a TV show Strathairn was in. I forgot the title, but I heard it was pretty good. Strathairn is actually very good in many of his roles. I liked him in the Godzilla Monsterverse franchise. I thought he was very good in that. Or he plays a soldier rather well. So this movie goes back to the end of the Russia sequence in Bourne Supremacy. It actually shows Bourne is escaping authorities after he was, after he had visited the daughter of Vladimir Nevsky, who he assassinated on his first very real mission. And so they basically have it where he's still shot from the time where Kirill shot him, and he's evading the police, and we see him getting more memories breaking through with Albert Hirsch as he's running water and whatnot. We see that he's basically being tortured in a program training. Will you commit to the program? Or he hears this voice, will you commit to the program? And it's a very knowable voice if you know Albert Finney. And he plays Dr. Hirsch. So I do like how they bring in things that can remind Jason of those certain situations, and they do a great job with it. And after he gets touched by a cop, he immediately snaps back into Jason Bourne mode and just disarms the cop, but also has the gun that the cop had on the other cop. And the cop's saying in Russian, it's like, "I'm not armed. Please don't kill me." And he's like, "Give me your radio." He crushes the radio, holding the gun on him. He's like, "My argument is not with you." And that's when he escapes. We then get to 6 weeks later, where we are listening to the tape recording that Bourne made of Abbott, where Abbott admits to killing Marie and also talking to Vladimir Nevsky, who basically showing that he was, or not Vladimir Nevsky, but that Yuri Petrikov or whatever the guy's name was. He was the Russian guy that ordered Kirill to go after Bourne. And so the CIA basically doesn't know whether or not Jason Bourne is a threat. He's like, "Well, now Jason Bourne is basically coming after us. So is that basically what you're telling me?" And Scott Glenn plays it very nice. And Pamela Landy, played by Joan Allen, her acting in this is superb. She does a great job because she is basically picking up where, or as the authority on Bourne, where everybody else is now dead who is an authority on Bourne, aside from Nikki Parsons, played by Julia Stiles. So this movie does a really good job at interweaving different things, but also keeping the story very linear. You have the different bits here and there, and they branch off, but they come right back into the main line. And I love how it all comes to a head in this. So they continue discussing Bourne and saying we should consider him a threat until proven otherwise. So then we go to Turin, Italy, where the crux of the story starts taking place. In the last one, it was a mole in the CIA, which turned out to be Abbott. And hey, Neozoic, how you doing? Good to see you. And also, folks, make sure that you smash that like button. It helps the channel more than you know. It helps get the channel noticed by other people as well. So, continuing on, we see a reporter, and he's meeting with a guy in Turin, Italy. Well, he's asking about Bourne, and his source tells him turn off the tape recorder. And so he starts telling him about a certain thing, which we hear as Black Briar. Now, if you watch the Bourne movies, Black Briar was actually mentioned in a screen fade of Brian Cox talking to Congress, where he introduces Black Briar. So Black Briar now comes to play later on in Ultimatum, not Supremacy. However, in Supremacy, it is active. And it is, or we learn later what it is. So we then get to back to Paris, and Daniel Bruhl, who everybody knows as Helmut Zemo in the MCU in Civil War, he plays Martin Kreutz, which is Marie Kreutz's brother. And Jason is there at his home to tell him about what happened to her. And he's like, the people, or so what now? Or he's like, she's dead. What happened to her? She was shot in the head. He gives him a little more information than he needs, or than he needs to hear. But you do see that he is pained by it, even though he's trying to keep it under wraps. But he's like, so what now? I'm going to get answers from the people who started this, essentially. And then Bourne just walks out. And that's the last we see of this character because, well, the movie has, or the story has to move forward, and they do a great job with it. It's a nice little segue that ties off the life of Marie Kreutz from the Bourne series. So we then see, let's see here. or it's also confirmed in that scene that Kirill was killed instead of left alive. So yes, he died in the collision from the chase of the last one. How would I compare Bourne franchise with other spy franchises such as James Bond, North by Northwest, Hunt for Red October, Mission Impossible? Mission Impossible and Bourne are very good. I like the Mission Impossible movies, with exception to the second one. I mean, it's watchable, but I don't really like it. I do like the James Bond movies from Connery or from Connery to Brosnan, because Brosnan was my second favorite James Bond next to Sean Connery. I loved Sean Connery and Doctor No and Man with the Golden Gun, or not Man with Golden Gun, but Goldfinger. I think he was also in Man with the Golden Gun. I could be wrong though. But anyway, we also are after the end of this, or after he leaves the brother. So we then see government surveillance at work. And we see that Blackbriar is definitely a very unsafe word to speak out or on your phone, as it is automatically flagged by a CIA Europe section, where they overhear a phone call where, as soon as he mentions Blackbriar, the phone call is intercepted. And so then it goes through to Langley, and then it goes up to New York with the Anti-Terrorism Bureau. Or so David Strathairn is basically the head of that system, and he activates an asset to be put on standby to take out the reporter named Simon Ross. And he also says that it's an NSA priority. And it's like, yeah, but you're CIA, you know? And hello, Cayman Rider. Good to see you. Thank you for coming in. Yeah, Golden Gun was Roger Moore. Right. So, yes, it's Goldfinger and Dr. No that I was talking about, or that I mentioned. I mismentioned Man with Golden Gun. Although I do like that one too, because Christopher Lee plays one hell of a good character, or a good villain. So we then see Bourne reading about his life in the paper, and we get more memories, which are of his training, as well as events from the first and second movie. This is a good way of catching us up on what happened in the last movies without having to go all the way back into them. And it's basically showing you what happened to Marie, what happened in certain areas and whatnot. It really is a wonderful way of doing that. So once Ross is now being followed by the CIA, New York is Bourne decides to call Ross, and they're like, we got his phone tapped and whatnot. However, he gets called in or called out of a meeting to answer a call, and he uses another person's phone instead. And they're like, or he's like, this is Jason Bourne. I've been reading your stuff. Find it interesting. Waterloo Station, 30 minutes south entrance. And so it's like, holy crap. The Golden Goose just called us, you know? And, well, we now see that the assassin is put into play. He's moving forward to go after Simon Ross, because Simon Ross is seen as a threat to the CIA. And we get the Waterloo Station where Bourne is helping him. And he plants a prepaid phone on him so that they can't listen in. It's this sort of spycraft that helps a person, because Jason knows the techniques of the CIA. He knows their protocols. He knows that they're going to tap his phone. He knows that they're going to listen into his conversations because this man is a threat. So you're going to have to give him a different phone, one that they haven't tapped into because they won't know the number of that phone. So when they're going through Waterloo Station, he's like, "Who's your source?" You know, I can't tell you that. I mean, it's like, dude, this is not a joke. These people will kill you. You mention something, or you have people following you, and they will kill you if they think you are a threat. And he's like, "Does this have anything to do with Blackbriar?" He's like, "What's Blackbriar?" Treadstone's upgrade. And they said that you were the first. So essentially, we learned that Jason Bourne was the first of the Treadstone program. So there's a little bit more in his past that is starting to bubble up. And so now he realizes, okay, we have to start moving, and I have to keep you safe until I can get more answers out of you. Unfortunately, that doesn't work because the freaking Simon or the reporter freaks out, and he ends up running, and he runs out a door and catches a bullet in the head. And during this time, Jason Bourne also is caught on camera helping him. So now the CIA automatically thinks Bourne is the reporter's source that got information on Blackbriar. Not the case, because he doesn't know about Blackbriar, or he didn't know about Blackbriar until, well, yeah, until they or until the reporter mentioned it. So now the asset was tasked to take Bourne out, except that it didn't work out. How would I compare Matt Damon's Jason Bourne with other such roles as The Departed, Saving Private Ryan, Ford v. Ferrari, Oppenheimer? I did not see Oppenheimer. The Ocean's Trilogy, True Grit. I've seen him in Saving Private Ryan, Jason Bourne series, and a few other movies. I also have seen him in Good Will Hunting. He plays such great roles. Matt Damon is one hell of an actor. He actually commits to his roles very well. And I really give him a lot of good. I think Jason Bourne is one of his strongest things. I heard yesterday that there's another Jason Bourne movie coming out or in the works. So I'm actually kind of curious to see where that's going to go. So after Ross is taken out, the reporter, well, yeah. We then see Pamela Landy being called in to ops because she is the one who knows the most about Bourne at this point. So they call her in, and they're like, or she also heard about the shit going down at Waterloo Station in England. Yeah, a reporter's dead. I've never approved of your methods. She's talking to Vosen, and he's like, sometimes things need to be done. It's very easy to critique an operation from an armchair after the fact. Basically reminding her, it's like, unless you're in that room, you really have no say in how an operation goes down. And my plans for Thanksgiving, I gave them at the beginning of this stream, Cayman. Taking the day off to do a family meal. So after the assassination in Waterloo catches wind of this reporter's source in Madrid, he starts freaking out and clearing out. And Vosen and Landy meet. Landy and Vosen, you really do understand that they don't get along with each other due to differences of methods, where Landy is not for killing everybody. Vosen has no problem with it. So you know that Vosen is a very dangerous individual. However, he has no idea who he's going up against. I mean, he knows who Jason Bourne is. He just doesn't know how skilled he is, you know? So Landy is now put in charge for the hunt of Jason Bourne, and she tells people to step up their game. She's like, you are chasing one of the most skilled black ops assassins the CIA has ever trained. So I want you guys to do this, this, this. And they're all just like gobsmacked at what she's saying. That would mean now. I love that. That would mean right now. Get your asses going, folks. We lost this guy in Waterloo. He just disappeared. You are now 9 hours behind him. So Yeah. So they end up pulling up on all the different or all they get their hands on the reporters' books and stuff. So um they get different information, and they find out that this guy named Neil Daniels is a section chief in Madrid. And she's like, well, how do we find it? Or she's like, the best way to find the source, contact anybody in our group or anybody in our groups, look up how many of them turned their phones off while Simon Ross was in New York, or not New York, but while he was in Turin. And so we then we learn that, or she basically very easily proves that Jason Bourne was not his, or was not the source. And they're like, well, how do you know that? Because he just went to meet Ross at Waterloo. Why do you, and ask him, and talk to him there? Why would he go all the way out of his way to Turin, Italy, and just show up at Waterloo to talk to him again? Doesn't make sense. So yeah, Bourne's not the source. And we then see that Bourne finds a picture of Dr. Hirsch and Neil Daniels, triggering more of his torture training. And a team arrives, and Bourne does a MacGyver to trick the teams, where he uses a rotating fan and duct tape to cast a shadow underneath a door, which causes the CIA folks to start shooting at him. Who would win in a fight, Jason Bourne or John Wick? Bourne. John Wick is skilled, but I don't think he's as skilled as Jason Bourne. John Wick doesn't have the government training that Jason Bourne does. Would make an interesting versus stream, though. So we then see that after he knocks them out, Nicky Parsons shows up, and he's like, what are you doing here? I was stationed here after Berlin from the last movie. And so we then see her get called, and she's like, I need to pick up this phone. So she gets issued a code challenge. And the code in is Sparrow, and she responds Everest, which means our normal response. And if she would have said Ruby, they would have known she was under duress. So she sees Bourne, and she's like, response Everest, which says that she doesn't have anything to fear of Bourne. She knows that Bourne won't kill her. However, he's still keeping that gun on her, and she is absolutely wrong. He would kill her. That is something that I absolutely love. It's like, he will shoot you if you say the wrong thing, but yet you are showing no fear in front of this man. That is very good acting, because she's showing him, you have nothing to fear of me. So Pamela wants to talk to Nikki to get a message to Bourne to bring him in alive. However, Vosen's like, no, we want him dead. He is a threat. We eliminate threats. So when that happens, they tell Nikki, it's like, we have another team that's going to be there in an hour, so just stay put. And she's like, okay, I copy. And I love it. He's like, how long do I have? 3 minutes? And the team's actually going to be there in 5. So he picks up the phone, and he calls the police, and he says, I'm hearing gunfire from people across the hall. I think it's Americans. So he then throws the phone down and pops off some shots, takes Nikki with her, or with him. And she actually helps him out instead. Now, the cops, or the team that's arriving, which are Americans, are then caught by the cops because they both arrive at the same time, which is freaking awesome. It just shows that Bourne knows how to make a clean getaway and to use the authorities at his, or to use the authorities to basically get away from any pursuit that may track him. So then we see Landy and Landy hears that Bourne has a kill order put out on him. And so she goes to talk with Vosen, and she's like, what's Blackbriar? And he's like, for Christ's sake, we're in the middle of an operation. You want Bourne? you're gonna have to play ball. What is Blackbriar? Blackbriar is essentially Treadstone on steroids. There's no more delays due to bureaucracy. It's the new version of Treadstone. It's surveillance, lethal action, rendition, interrogation, and they're not having to worry about the bureaucracy getting hold of it or waiting for a terrorist to walk away. We can just take them out. We have absolute authorization. It's an automatic yes. It's like we need to, or instead of sending requests up the chain, it's like you automatically have a green light. It's something that I would not ever approve of something like that in the government. But they did so in order to make it more going on. So then we learned through Bourne and Nikki that the training was experimental and that Bourne was the first, and it was all behavioral modification. They break down the subjects in order to make them more compliant. And he's remembering more of his past, and we learned that she actually sympathizes with him. And she also doesn't like the job anymore because she's like, after Berlin, I realized that this was not the way to do it anymore. But I can't exactly get out of the system either, you know? So we then see that Neil Daniels was the station guy in Madrid. So they're on his trail and they leads them to Tangiers. Vosen keeps calling a mystery caller, and you basically understand it is Kramer, played by Scott Glenn. And he doesn't want any of this stuff to wrap around the neck. He actually brought Pamela Landy in to wrap Blackbriar around her neck if everything goes south. And essentially, they're going to burn Landy because of, or they don't want anybody catching wind of what they were doing to the public, you know? And it's a really good way of telling the story because it's like, that's why I brought her in to tie it off, and it's going to go right around her neck. She'll be the one taking the fall. So you know that they're not all on the up and up. And Kramer is indeed in way over his head because he thinks that Bourne's coming for him when that's not exactly the situation. Bourne isn't coming for him. Bourne doesn't even know who the hell he is. How would you rank from worst to best the films? That would be a question to best ask in the next stream when I'm covering Jason Bourne, because I haven't discussed Bourne yet, or I haven't discussed the last movie yet, Neozoic. But I will answer that in the next stream. So we then see that an asset is in Tangier, and his name is Desh. Nikki hacks in to find out who the assassin is. And the kill order is given to the assassin for Nikki after Bourne gets her to give him a new phone so he can track it. Well, after he diverts off of his thing, we see in this scene in Tangiers, Bourne is unsuccessful. So he is very much capable of failing, even though he is very skilled at what he does. He tried to stop a guy, but this one is a Blackbriar, more trained in more lethal, and also extremely skilled. So this guy was also very resourceful, where he used his own little motorized scooter as a bomb to kill his target. He also thought he took out Bourne, except that he didn't, and he receives the kill order on Nikki. So now it's a race to find Nikki. And this whole chase through Tangiers is well done. I mean, you have them running through buildings, over rooftops. You have the police chasing them. It is so well done. Now, I said last time in the last stream about cinematography and how that is very important, because you can't always have a shaky cam like this when you have a fight. So when they're doing that, where it's going like really rapid like this, it doesn't work. So they actually definitely improved it where it's more like this or less shaky, but still gives enough chaos to the scene, the shaking of the camera, that actually shows that the fight is very well done. And whip panning is also done very well in this, where it's showing two different characters coming together and whatnot. So they do very good stunts in this. Plus, the jump that Bourne does from window to window was very freaking well done. That is the heavy stunt in the movie. Or as they do. And when Desh fights him, we learn that he is very much skilled. He's a little bit more skilled than Bourne, but yet Bourne is able to eke out a win. And so he has Nikki, who is also helps him a little bit during the fight. He's like, "Coda in, we need to be dead." So they are bought enough time to get out of Tangiers. Now but Vosen is also smart. He wants visual confirmation, so he sends in somebody to do a visual confirmation. And we then see that Bourne helps Nikki changes her hair color, gives herself a haircut so that she's no longer recognizable. And we then see that Bourne is talking with her, and he says, "I can remember all of the faces I have killed. I can't remember their names." He is having a small breakdown moment, and it's wonderful that there's no sexual relationship between Nikki and Bourne. However, she does feel for him. She does sympathize with him because she monitored his health and the health of others. So she knows what these guys have been through. And so she realizes that this man has gone through hell and he's just trying to reclaim some of his past, I noticed you changed your name. How come? It's because my reviews don't get as much views anymore, Cayman Rider, so it's now just Orange Hat. It allows me to branch out differently now. So we also see that Nikki's hair dye and haircut is sort of reminiscent to Marie. Not to mention that that Julia Stiles does sort of have a little bit of a look-alike to Franca Potente who played Marie. So it's a nice little nod to Marie, So then we see that he also has regret, and he regrets allowing Marie to help him. And then we see that as I said, we don't get a romance. He lets her go, and he's like, it gets easier. Because now she has to basically disappear. She is no longer, she has a kill order given to her from the CIA. And they will kill her if they find her. So Landy is now looking into Bourne's training, finds out his birthday, which comes into play later. Now we learned in the movie Bourne Supremacy that his name is David Webb, and he was born 4/15/71 in Nixa, Missouri. Well, it learns later on we learn in the scene when she's looking over it, that his birthday is 9/13/1970. So, yeah, that's interesting. And Landy as she's looking into the training and the effects, Bourne looked into the effects of Neil Daniels, and he goes to the training, or he goes into the New York, where he realizes there is a office there that he knows to spy on. And Jesus, 1 second, folks. So now, um, we see that Pamela is, or we get the scene where Pamela is looking into it, and that's when Bourne calls him or calls her, and it's like, "Oh, we got a problem here." He's or they intercept the phone, but or they listen in, and we get the same thing, and it's like when he says, "You look tired, Pam. Get some rest," and she looks back, which is the end of Bourne Supremacy. Well, he's like, "Oh my god," he's looking right at her. So now Vosen is freaking out. So he's like, "We need to look into, or we need to set up a 12 block perimeter, lock lock the 12 block perimeter down, lock down the building or any adjacent buildings he's at play in New York City." And so Bourne sends a message to her to go to Tudor City, and the asset from London is put back in play for New York. And so this whole bit here is so freaking wonderful. It's a lovely misdirect. Who would win between Ethan Hunt and Jason Bourne? Jason Bourne. He'd slaughter Ethan. He would slaughter Ethan Hunt. So yeah, Vanya, good question though. I mean, I do love spy versus spy stuff. So this misdirect is them all chasing Landy, so that in case Bourne shows up, they can take them both out. Except that Jason Bourne ends up calling Noah Vosen, and or the way that most people at the CIA pick up their phone, they say their full name. So when he calls Vosen, he has a tape recorder, and he also looked at Vosen when he was going into his theater or into his safe. He realized he needs a thumbprint, and he also realizes that Noah Vosen is probably uses his name to get into the safe as well, which he does. And so when he picks up the phone and says Noah Vosen, you see him click off the tape recorder, which is so freaking great. And he's like, "This is Jason Bourne." He's like, I was wondering when you would make this call. You didn't really think I would go to Tudor City, did you?" "I guess not. Why don't we talk again so we can talk things over?" "Where are you?" "I'm sitting in my office." "I doubt that." Because he's in, and he's like, "Why would you doubt that?" "Because if you were if you were in your office, we'd be having this conversation face to face." And then he hangs up the phone. Such a great scene. I love it. And so then he gets into the file using the thumbprint he picked up from the phone, and he uses the recording of Vosen's voice to get into the safe. And it's like, oh shit, he got the files. He freaking stole the files and made it out of the building. And so Vosen's freaking out, calls a full abort from Tudor City, and they're all chasing after Bourne now. And we get that nice little chase throughout New York City. And Pam decides to go to 415 East 71st Street, which is the code that she gave to Bourne, which is then CIA learns that it is indeed a misdirect, because it's like, we found a problem here. Bourne's birthday is 9/13/71. She said, or oh my god, it's a code. So they're all freaking out at ops trying to figure out who it is or what the code is. It's like you got, or punched in as coordinates, it comes in as Cameroon. 41571 is a zip code for someplace in Kentucky. James Bond or Jason Bourne, JB versus JB. I was wondering if that was intentional. That's a tough one, because both have survived some pretty. I'd give the edge to Bourne. And I'm not saying that because I'm reviewing a Bourne movie. I'm saying that because I honestly think that James, while skilled, James Bond is very skilled, and he has a lot of tech gadgets. Bourne is very hands-on, and he knows how to handle things as well. He also is very good at field stripping, which means if he gets a hand on a gun of his enemy, he'll strip that gun or he'll use it against him. So Vosen calls in and he's like, what number did she give him? 41571. Christ, she just gave up the training facility. So he calls into Dr. Hirsch and he's like, Jason Bourne knows everything. He's coming in, or he's coming to the facility. He's coming for you. Oh, he's coming home, Noah. Don't worry. I'll keep him in play while you guys get here. And so he arrives there after leaving, or the asset from London. He has the asset at gunpoint during a chase, and he doesn't pull the trigger. He walks away, leaving the asset still alive. So that comes to play later on. Now, Pamela is waiting for Jason at 4:15, or at 4:15, he's 71st. And she's like, why are you or he asks her, why are you helping me? I didn't sign up for this. This isn't us. But he's like, you want to do something about it? Use this, or release it, or tell him everything. This will help you. So she goes into the building because she realizes the CIA is on their tail. And while Bourne is heading to the training facility, she faxes out the files, the Blackbriar files. She's essentially a whistleblower now. And she's protected under law. So she's like, or when Vosen busts in on her, she's like, hope you got yourself, or you better get yourself a good lawyer. Because she faxed it to CNN, to all the media, because they start asking questions later on at the end of the film. And so when Bourne confronts Hirsch, we get the full memories. And he's like, why did you guys pick me? You picked yourself, Jason. You volunteered. It's right in this room. He sets him in. And we get the full thing where David Webb came in, volunteered, and he wouldn't commit. He's breaking down, and he's like, who is he? Doesn't matter. What do you do? Doesn't matter. Are you going to commit to this program, or are you weak, or are you too weak to do it? You'll be saving American lives. So after a buildup, you see Jason, or David, cock his gun, put 2 in the chest and 1 in the head without knowing who the person is. That is how you build a killer. That is how you desensitize yourself from killing in this world. Your first kill has to be just a blind kill. You have to blindly give yourself to the program. That is how they did it. So we then see him escaping after he holds the gun to Hirsch's head, and he's like, you don't deserve that star, or you don't deserve the star that I hang for you at Langley. I'm done with this. Leave me alone. And so he gets to escape, and the asset is right on top of on his tail. And so he stops on the roof, and the asset hesitates, and he's like, why didn't you pull the trigger? Why did you leave me alive? Look at us. Look at what they make you give. That causes the asset to hesitate. Now, for those of you who don't, or who have watched these movies, you know that was a line from the first movie, from the professor to Jason. The professor being Clive Owen. He's like, look at us. Look at what they make you give. And then he dies because Jason shot him in that movie. And so he says the same thing. And Noah Vosen's getting on the roof to go after Jason. And Jason jumps off the roof just as Noah Vosen pulls the trigger. So when he lands in the water, he's not moving. And we think it's over. Now, Pamela Landy goes before Congress or Senate goes before the Senate and outs Kramer and the Blackbriar program. We see that Vosen and Hirsch are arrested. And we also see Nikki somewhere in the world listening to this news report. And they're it's like controversy now, or mystery surrounding David Webb, who is the source of outing Blackbriar. And we learned that David Webb was shot jumping off a building in Manhattan. However, after 3 days of search, no body has been found. And you see Nikki smile because she knows the truth. He's not dead. And they go back to showing him in the water where he just springs back, or he starts moving and swimming out. And you get the Extreme Places song starting to play when she smiles, and it's like no body has been found, and it's like, okay, we know he's alive to fight another day. So that is the end of this movie. And I already have the Bourne movies, or the next one, talking points written up, but I'm not going to discuss that because that's for next week. Jason Bourne. As for objectivity in this movie, great movie, well done. These movies are 9 out of 10s all the way through, in my opinion. 9 out of 10 objectively. You have great story, you have good cohesive story, and you have characters being well developed and well grown. So this movie was done like 3 years later from Supremacy, but it's still only 6 weeks apart from the two movies. I really like how the developing story of Jason Bourne continues on. And we see later, or I like how they ended this one, leaving it very much open for another film. I just wish that it would, or we didn't have to wait 9 more years for it, because they went with Legacy, which I'm not going to be discussing because Legacy isn't Jason Bourne, it's Aaron Cross. However, I still do like that movie. I am going to watch it. But subjectively, these movies are 10 out of 10 for me. I love the Bourne series. I really do. And I enjoy how Bourne has to adapt using old school methods against the modernized CIA in the last movie that I will discuss next week. So, moviegoer, if you like these spy movies, these are definitely for you. I really do enjoy these films because they really have a good way of making you like, oh my God, I can't believe that he just did that. And how skilled this guy is using it really is good to show that these are the higher up people that are very skilled in what they do. They have all these resources, and yet one of their own, because he knows the tricks. Not necessarily all of them, but he knows just enough to worry them, and he can make them look like utter fools. I love movies like that because it shows that there are people out there that can get one up over the system. So anyway, folks, that is going to be the review. Thank you so much to Vanya, Neozoic, and Kamen Rider, and anyone else who joined in, Geek Detective Pierce as well. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned for tonight on Society Reviews channel. We will be discussing Hollywood Insanity over there. So yeah, also OMB Reviews I do believe goes live tonight at 7:30, and I will be modding his channel over there. So you all have a wonderful day. I might be getting more stuff out, all depends. But if I don't, oh well. And I'll try to get some more content out for Wednesday. But until then, folks, you all have a wonderful day, and always remember to stay humble. Later.